Hi, great. I'm so excited to be doing this with you this morning.
Thanks, me too.
I have been watching most of your stuff and I'm obsessed with Selena and Chef. That's actually how I knew you and found out about you.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk to you about Jongga and the generation preservation campaign
Mhm.
and what that means to you and what that means for Jongga. Like, can you explore that a little bit more for me?
Yeah, I mean that generation preservation, to me, those two words can carry quite a lot of meaning and definition and interpretation, right? And so I come at it from a couple different places. One from maybe a more literal, like chef place of preservation of food, of plant biodiversity, of education, of of championing a product that's been around for centuries, or and I guess not a product. I guess it's a product.
Yeah,
Kimchi as a product been around for centuries and so heavily rooted in tradition. I think it's um, obviously born out of necessity in
right,
order to keep people fed
right,
during times of famine. And then the other side is this cultural place of generation preservation of what it means and the history rooted behind the people that started making it. And for me, being Korean, obviously, but also an adoptee and learning about my culture maybe a little bit later on in life. And so those two things coming together, what better way to learn about my culture than through food? So I feel like
exactly.
that's a really good place to start for me.
Right. And I've had kimchi myself, and it reminds me so much of pickles, which is actually a Haitian.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because my parents are from Haiti. So I love the cultural connection that you wouldn't even imagine sometimes between two different countries that are
Hmm.
so far apart. And there's the same ideology there with preserving
Hmm.
food. So when it comes to that cultural connection, have you come across that many times in your vast experience of cooking where you've connected with someone culturally and you guys are from two different places, you know?
All the time, all the
Yeah.
time. And I think, um, you know, there have been more moments that I could count when I've been at a restaurant or trying someone else's food, whether it be in a restaurant or someone's home, whatever, where all of a sudden, like, you're like, wait a second, this reminds me of something. And then
Yeah.
you just start digging. And I think that's
Yeah.
the beauty of food. And we've always, food people and people in general always say food is a connector. And it truly is. It's an introduction, it is a connection, and it's a way to learn about other people in a way that we all need to eat. We all needed our ancestors needed to preserve and feed themselves in the same way, no matter where you're from. And I think that for me is the most exciting thing about food, right? Is
Yeah.
I've learned not only about my culture, but vast amounts about other people, and understanding that we all have very, very deep similarities in a lot of ways.
Right. And I was gonna ask you about your restaurant and what inspired the dishes that you make there at Arlo Gray,
Yeah.
and I looked at the inside and saw how beautiful it was. And you talked about in an interview, I think it took you like 2 years to come to an idea of like how you wanted everything to like pan out with the menu
Mhm.
aesthetically, with how the restaurant would look. What was that process like for you?
Wow. Growth inducing, challenging in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. And it's because when I opened the restaurant, I had this very firm idea of what I thought I was and what I thought my food message should be. And, when I looked around the sea of success of chefs and restaurants, I was like, wow. And you want to emulate them because they're emulating success. And you're just like, wait a second. But the only story that hasn't been told is my story. And that can come from a lot of different angles. And so for me, coming into Arlo Gray's food story was about coming into comfort. And I was like, well, what are the things that bring me comfort? Because this is exactly what we just talked about. If you come to my restaurant, we've never met before.
Yeah.
I'm Korean, you're Haitian. At the end of the day, when you sit at my restaurant, not only do you want good food, but I want you to leave feeling full, literally and figuratively. And
Right.
so if I can give just a little bit of something, saying there's this one flavor profile that's comforting to me, and that might be comforting to you or remind you of something that you used to have. Great. I mean, I think that's the goal.
Right.
Not everyone walks away feeling that, and that's okay. But for me, I think that's something I also crave when I go to other restaurants.
Amazing. I found it very interesting, like the variety in which you are, like your food is influenced by so much. And even when I watched you on Selena and Chef making the recipes that you made with her, I felt like there was a fusion of sorts with a lot of the meals that you prepared.
Yeah.
So when it comes to creating your recipes, what's that process look like for you? And considering what to add, what not to add from different cultures or different styles of cuisine?
So a lot of it will come from things that I grew up having. So my two main dishes on Arlo Grey that will never come off, that will never change. They're the two signature dishes, not because I wanted them to be, but because the guests and people coming over the years have deemed those the dishes to have. And one is a house-made pasta, a muffaldini pasta that we do with local Texas grains, and we make a sauce that takes 4 days. But the root and the core of that dish is my love of hamburger helper. We've all had a boxed meal at one point in our life, whether we like it or we don't like it.
Yeah.
And for me, it was hamburger helper. And there is no hamburger, there is no helper in that dish, but there's like umami, rich, salty, like comfort bowl of pasta.
Right.
And then the other dish is this crispy rice dish that I do. And a lot of times where people are like, oh, it's this Japanese playoff Japanese crispy rice. And I said, well, no, it's actually not. Let me tell you where it's from. And it's my obsession with tahdig, which is the Persian crispy rice with saffron in it. Oh, it's so good.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And being in college, that mixed with being in college and ordering crab fried rice all the time. My New England career upbringing in Boston of hot crab rolls with butter and bacon, and then bibimbap, which is that classic like mix it all together and just like eat it as like one. So those are my 4 rice influences coming into one dish. And
that's amazing.
It's delicious.
That's amazing. I'm a huge rice fan, so when bibimbap is one of my favorites to eat. So
and here's the thing, like all those 4 influences, but someone assumed that it was a Japanese influence, which is fine. Like to already find something that relates them to that dish that feels familiar, feels less intimidating.
That's amazing. So the hamburger helper of it all, that brings me back to, I know you said that, I think in an interview, you were mentioning how you like to eat fast food, but you'll like refine it or remix it in a way with fast foodies. Could you talk about fast foodies a little bit and what that looked like?
Oh, fast foodies. I got to tell you, I've never had more fun cooking in my adult career. I think that food, that show not only tapped into like food that's familiar to many of us, whether we like it or not. I get to cook alongside 2 of my great chef friends, and we get to like have friendly competition with no real consequence. So with all those things in play, you just go and play, and it's like the most fun thing ever. And it's about taking the essence of why we love something. Why do we love these McDonald's chicken nuggets that quite frankly are kind of gross if you think about it, but also like not at the same time, but we like it because texturally they're great, consistent, why, like all the things. And we take all those bits of why we like something and mash them up into our own food story. And being able to sit next to Jeremy and Justin, being able to try their interpretation to see where they come from their point of view, and then look at these 3 dishes that have nothing in common, but everything in common at the same time. So that show is just, it's fun to watch, and it's equally fun to make.
It definitely is. And speaking of shows, you were on Top Chef, you won season 10, and you are now co-hosting Iron Chef on Netflix. How does it, truthfully, how does it feel being on television?
Well, it was not the goal. And it certainly wasn't anything I worked towards. I went on Top Chef because my boss at the time, who was my mentor, made me go. Quite frankly, made me go. And I said, I don't want to do it. She said, you're doing it. I said, I don't want to do it. We had this back and forth. she's like, Kristen, more women need to be on television,
Mhm.
especially in this food space. She was referring to the foods. More women need to be in front of the camera. And she's like, I know that you can, she said, I know that you can win, which also put a lot of pressure on me.
Mm.
But I also knew, as any great mentor is, that they see things in you that you can't see in yourself.
Mhm.
And I was like, I trusted her with that.
Mhm.
And so eventually I just was like, fine, I'll go. And I just hope to make it one more day. And it was stressful, but one of the greatest pleasures that I've had in my professional career.
Yeah, you're natural, on the camera. Even when I was watching your episodes, you just have a very, you know, genuine personality. And one of the things I found very fascinating when you were doing an interview about kitchen culture,
Mm-hmm.
you discussed the toxicity within kitchen culture sometimes and how you could go ahead and assuage that with kindness.
Mm-hmm.
And so could you talk a little bit more about kitchen culture and aside from trying to be kind, what other things
Mm-hmm.
that we ourselves that aren't in the culinary industry, that I really didn't think too much about kitchen culture
Yeah.
and what could breed in it?
No matter what industry you're in, our work life takes up the vast majority of our hours in a day,
Yeah.
whether you're actually physically there or mentally you're still there. And so, I mean, and I guess if you think about it that way, it's like 24 hours nonstop. You're always thinking about something.
Mhm.
And so for me, opening a restaurant was a lot of ways that I could change it, not by preaching what I was changing, but by making an impact on the people that came through our doors. And so I always say, be kind. You don't always have to be nice, but you have to be kind. Being nice means saying yes. Being nice means, I guess, being kind of walked all over sometimes. But being kind means you can say no. Being kind means you can hold people accountable because they're still working and they have a responsibility. And being kind is placing healthy boundaries around not only your space, but helping other people do the same. And so when I opened the restaurant, I think one of the greatest things that happened was the folks that started to come apply. I was like, okay, already I'm seeing something different than what I came up in. There's far more women of color, queer women, queer people. Just I was like, oh, okay, this is great. And I think just by nature of who I am, of being those things, I attracted those things. And so, some of the greatest things in conversations that we have, and this applies everywhere in life, is that we're there doing food, we have a job to do. But outside of that, we're talking about how are we going to make a lasting impact on how people then leave the restaurant doors and feel greater about themselves. And so we have conversations, countless people I've taught how to iron their apron, not because, well, yes, because they need to iron their apron, but also, how do you feel when you put on the apron? And so sometimes the exercise sticks and sometimes it doesn't. But I show them how to iron. A lot of these are kids that stuff it in the backpack, show them how to iron. I'm like, now put it on and stand up. How do you feel?
Right.
Do you feel better? And they're like, all of a sudden, the shoulders come back a little bit.
Yeah.
There's a little bit more pride. I'm like, that's kind of I guess, a real example of what I hope to be kind of doing within our cute little kitchen.
That's amazing. And I was watching you did a routine where you essentially charted your day from 6 a.m. to a certain time. And I saw the order and routine you were trying to place within your own personal life that I'm now seeing you do with the people you work with to help them build discipline and routine and also just feel better about themselves. And could you talk a little bit more about the importance of wellness?
Yeah, I think I've had quite a journey of defining what that means to me. And I think that for so many points in my life, we are all taught to grind, to work hard, put your head down, just push, push, push. You don't feel good, just keep pushing. You're going to get past it. You're going to break through it. Sometimes those barriers aren't meant to be broken through at that moment. Sometimes you just need to sit in front of the barrier and allow yourself the space to feel and to think about how instead of breaking through it, you're going to healthfully walk through it. And, there's some days I'm really good at keeping a wellness routine, and some days that I'm really crappy at it, to be
Yeah.
honest. I try to find a harmony. I don't say balance because nothing is ever 50-50 and that scale is never perfectly balanced. But if
Right.
I can find a harmony where all these things can work together to actually make something bigger and better, then that's kind of what I'm striving for. And so it's kind of trial and error day by day, because every
Yeah.
day you need something different.
Yeah.
So it's not just one thing every single time. It's what feels good today and what do I need to do for my adult responsibility, and how do I make these things kind of coexist together.
That's beautiful. And I have one last question for
Yeah.
you. What would you tell young Kristen, from what you know so far today, what would you tell young Kristen?
Wow. A little backstory before I give you what I would say. And that is a kid with major social anxiety, major questioning of self-worth, understanding if I was wanted and good enough, like all these different things. As an adult, we're kind of taught to like either get rid of them or ignore them or just kind of push them to the side so you can be an adult and go on your path. But what I would tell young Kristen is saying that you don't have to try to get rid of those things, because that just brought me a lot of stress in life. I was like, oh my God, it's not happening. And like, am I crazy because I can't fix these things? So for me, it was about embracing these things that make me me, but trying to find ways to kind of like rework them, where I can twist it enough to find something great within that space. And so to relinquish control to those things, and those things are a part of me, I would say to keep them because they are you. And also that everything's going to be okay. Because as a kid, I didn't think anything was going to pan out to be okay for me.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Kristen. I enjoyed interviewing you. You're honestly a delight and an inspiration.
Thank you.